Hi, my name is Bernard Pucher, and welcome back to CenterFrame Interview, where we talk to fascinating filmmakers from all around the world. And joining me today is A.M. Lukas. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you coming down. You're also a core member of the CenterFrame community, which I really, really appreciate. And thank you. Thank you for coming and joining me on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's really fascinating because like the CenterFrame community is a fairly sort of wide community in styles, and certainly in the aesthetics that people like and the and the stories they like to tell. But what I really liked about, especially about One Cambodian Family for My Pleasure, Please, is you have you have this. You have a very natural sort of aesthetic and style to both the writing and the directing that's there. It's not show offy. It's not like, look, these amazing shots I can do. It's just very like, here's the story. These are the things. So where do you can you like? I'd like to hear from you where you sort of developed your style, your technique from, and what you sort of, if you want to do something flashy, what do you look for? What's the thing that you would consider flashy for you?
Oh, interesting. What a great question. Um, I think you kind of said it in the way that you like it. I don't want it to come off like I'm showing off or anything like that. I want no matter what I'm doing, and I work with this brilliant cinematographer, excuse me, called Mina Singh, and she can do all the flashy stuff. But at the reason I love working with her so much is that she really understands the stories that I'm trying to tell, and in many cases relates to them herself. Like, for instance, one Cambodian, she's also a first generation American with a parent from India. And so she felt like she was also telling her story. The point being that I just do whatever, I think also coming at it from a writer's perspective, I'm just looking to tell the story in the sort of prettiest, most smooth, most compelling, easiest way to deliver it so that you're not distracted. I watch a lot of stuff where you're like, that is awesome. But then the writing and you're like, oh my God, come on. Not talking about people, I'm talking about very, very, I'm thinking of the HBO show,
Yes, of
whatever
course.
that's called. Um, yeah, I mean, it's so fun to watch. Um, but at the end of the day, it's like, what does that give you? Just a bunch of awesome, like, music video kind of vibes. So anyway, so it's funny you mentioned it though, because I love aesthetics. I love making things look pretty and making things look a certain way. It's just not above the storytelling.
You have quite a few writing credits, I mean, so it took you quite a bit before you decided to direct. And so what was the, because you have a lot of short films on your bio, which I always love when I see filmmakers really go and say, okay, I'm not just short films are just a path to making features or something like that. But like, I love it when filmmakers really go in and say, I'm gonna make a bunch of these, and you wrote quite a few and you acted in quite a few. So is writing your perspective? Is that the thing that stands out to you the most when you watch something?
I would say so. I mean, it's the whole, when I watch something, it's just the whole, I try to turn everything off and have the experience. But definitely came at everything from a writer's perspective, because that's, I just kind of always knew from a younger age that that's what I was good at. And then around the age of 17, I got more serious about it and was like, okay, and put together a portfolio and ended up going to NYU for like a fancy like screenwriting, what is it called? The Bachelor of Fine Arts. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys, that's American stuff, but and so that got stuck in my mind as like that's what I do. But the reason there are so many short films on there, it wasn't like me alone. I wish I had that kind of chutzpah to make that many short films on my own. But it was this group of friends and creative people that I fell into and ended up, my partner at the time, my like romantic partner, wanted to be a director, and so we would work very closely together. We were like the two people at the top of this creative collective making these films and just making ourselves laugh and putting them online for free back in the day when that was like nobody was really doing that. And when you
Yeah.
did do it and you did it well, it led to like a Hollywood career, like Broad City or High Maintenance was another one that was happening at the same time that we were doing this in Brooklyn. They were like, we started doing it because you guys did it. That's my claim to fame. But so that it never took off as its own show, but that's kind of what we were trying to do, is make like this hipster show, collection of short films, which were very silly. I haven't gone back and watched them in a long time. But so yeah, it took me years and years, and it actually took me until a producer who I respected and was like, ooh, he's real. He's like 20 some years older than me. And he offered me this opportunity to direct a feature. And I didn't think I had the experience, but it turns out I had all the experience I needed from making all those short films and being so close with the director. Sometimes he would accuse us of double directing, and it was a whole thing where I had to like stand down, But I think that coming at it from being convinced that I was just a writer. And also, honestly, I like to talk about this for all the females and female presenting people out there, that when you think of yourself, for me anyway, maybe it's generational. Now this is starting to sound like old stuff, but like I think it was really being socialized as a woman that stopped me from directing earlier. I think I would have been a director at like 18, like when I started getting serious about writing. I think 20, I was like 30 or 31 when I first made my feature. And it was done under crazy circumstances where I had to kind of sell my soul and be on TV while I did it. Anyway, but the point is, yeah,
I
I
think we
come
all
at it
sell
from
our
a writer's.
soul I think we all sell our soul to make our first
I,
feature.
it's so true in one way or another. Yes,
I
I think
guess
so.
it's the hardest one to get. Like, I think, it's hard enough to make short films, because you never have any money for it, et cetera, et cetera. But, short films don't take as long. To get a feature is a whole other experience. It's entirely different. So, and it's like this dream for filmmakers to finally, oh, I get to make my first feature, and then you'll have it made or something. And we'll do anything to do it.
Yep. And then it's so much pressure because it's the one. It's the one. And it's just we happen to practice a form of creativity and art that costs so much damn money. Like, it's frightening to think about, and the effort. When I see people send me their short films all the time, and I'm just like, oh, thinking about how much work it was and how much pizza they had to buy for friends and beg the friends to blah blah blah, like
Yeah, it's
it's
completely
just
true.
not easy.
One thing, as an immigrant myself, who basically has meandered now multiple continents, in growing up, I certainly resonated very strongly with one Cambodian. Not necessarily because I came from any kind of difficult background. I mean, I grew up in Austria, so I'd never had any sort of like the whole communist thing wasn't really a thing for me. But the Czechoslovakia was next door,
Yeah.
and I was very aware in the 80s of Czechoslovakia and what was happening there, and so the fall of the Soviet Union, that came in the decade following, and that really stuck out to me on one Cambodian is just how strong the immigrant experience really is. You want it to work so well when you go somewhere else, you know. What is that like, being the child of that? Because I do have children myself, but being the child of that during that time, how did that inform you? Do you have a way of talking about that?
Oh, another very interesting question. I think it was a funny kind of evolution from being a little kid who really has no idea what's going on. But even then, it was like you were saying, I was so aware of it. And I think the thing that was most striking for me growing up, that continued throughout the progression of my understanding of politics and the world, was the stark difference between, and this is different from your upbringing, which because you were next door. I was so far away geographically that nobody knew what Czechoslovakia was. nobody knew that there could be like political unrest, like just no. And I didn't even try to explain it because so there was that. I really think that that was an interesting, like, it was very shaping to realize that things were going on and that everyone around me was living a different reality to my mom, who was, crying by the TV, and it was just everything because all of her friends were still back there and she had left them without being able to say goodbye. I mean, it's just like it's so dramatic. And then my teachers don't know about Czechoslovakia, and my teachers at elementary school or whatever. So it's just that American kind of bubble that we don't seem to think it's important to like keep up with current events. It's mind blowing. But so I think that informed a lot of just my sort of my wonder at like what is going on here. And then I was lucky enough to, my parents would like scrape together the money and we would go to Europe in the summer to see my Italian grandparents or to see if we were able to. I think we went to Czechoslovakia once while it was still under communist rule. Anyway, to see the difference and then to see the difference of Prague, which I'm sure you like,
Yeah.
it was so great. And then I come back 3 years later and it's like Technicolor. They painted all of the townhouse, the different buildings, different colors of pastel. And it was just connecting people's freedom politically with something visual like that. I mean, it's like, forget about it. It's for a filmmaker, storyteller, it couldn't have been cooler.
It's a very interesting time because it's such a place of contrast, and I mean we don't really have any clear modern equivalents anymore to what the Iron Curtain was and to what that meant. I mean, we have it a little bit, but it's not the same. It's not this massive us and them. There's this big entity over there and there's us over here. It's much more gray now. And also I feel like America has spent a lot of time sort of being more introspective about what's going on around them and how, about all the injustices that the country faces now. And I find that when I moved to the US in the late 90s, there was still this air of, oh my God, America, wow, and I felt that moving there as an 18-year-old, this sheen had not worn off at all yet. You know what I mean? Like it was really obvious to me that I'm going to America. This is going to be amazing, and it really was, But the immigrant experience can really sort of dilute, I don't know, shut out the things that are maybe not that good because it's so much better of where you came from,
Yes, yes. That's sort of exactly, you stated it so well. I think is the crux of the humor of the short film that you're mentioning that I made. Like, not to bring it all back to me, but like the fact that she's just lying about how great North Dakota is because America is so amazing. And clearly you were raised with some of that. I was raised just hitting me over the head with still, despite all this introspection and, how effed up our country is in so many ways. My parents are still very, well, my mom is letting the darkness in and my dad is like, no, he's the Italian. He's like, this is the best place on earth. It's still the best place on earth. Because opportunity and everything.
I mean, it is a very interesting sort of perspective that evolves out of this, which actually brings me to Hollidaysburg a little bit because, because it's what's interesting about Hollidaysburg is that it's the quintessential American thing. You know what I mean? If that and the 4th of July, like if you're gonna have something to say this is American and it's American everywhere in America,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. It's Thanksgiving, and it's sort of this universal experience that every American kind of has. And I definitely noticed that while being in the US too. I remember my very first Thanksgiving there because I was invited to join because I was asked, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? I was like, nothing. Like, why
I don't do that.
What would I do for Thanksgiving? It's like, oh no, you're coming to my place. And suddenly, you're just not alone for Thanksgiving. You just shouldn't be, Where did the story for Hollidaysburg start for you? Like, how did that project come about, and what were the consequences from it?
Oh my God. Huge question just in terms of the kind of insanity that went along with that experience. I would venture to say maybe more wacky than your average first feature, but as you said before, they're all so wacky and insane in their own way. But it came about because this producer, I had met him through the short films that we made, and he was sort of a fan of another movie that that group had made together called Break Up at a Wedding, and he needed a first time feature director for this reality show. I used to like really try not to call it a reality show. I'm like, it's a documentary, it's a docu-series about creativity. Because
Right.
that's what I told
It's
myself
a
to get through it.
docu-series, you know.
And then feel like you're not selling your soul. But the premise of this reality show was that two first time directors would like go head to head, and then at the end, and each make their own feature completely independent of each other, and then at the end the nation would vote, or the world would vote like American Idol, and one of us would be the victor and win a $250,000. Like the whole thing was so crazy. Why did they make the prize that big? Like what is going on? And the other director was a YouTube star, like like 20 million plus followers, most of whom were like young 9-year-old girls. But that's another story. So we were both given source material, and the whole thing, because it had never done before, it was just a mess. Like I was like, I could kind of manipulate it to be less intrusive and more how I wanted it to be. So I was like, I'll do this. And the producer, by the way, he produced Good Will Hunting and Manchester by the Sea. So I was like, I trust you, like I will say yes to this because that is some those are some serious movies. So
Yeah.
um, to answer your question, sorry, it was source material by a writer named Dan Schofer, who had written like a kind of, uh, solid by the numbers coming of age movie about kids in Michigan or something. I can't remember. It was like, yeah, it was what I just said. And and I said, because because I come at it from the writer's angle, I had never really been interested. And I'm still not sure if I can offer anything as just a director, I mean, we'll see if I'm lucky enough to find a script that I want to just direct, but primarily like my dream is to write something and then film
Directed.
it and tell that story that is inside of me. So I didn't want to do it. And I said, I will do it if I can do a page one rewrite with my buddies that I've been working with already to make it easier, because I only had 30 days to do it. And like I said, because it was all so wacky, Chris Moore, the producer, was like, all right, you just keep the names of the characters and like the basic premise. The basic premise was it Thanksgiving? I think it was Thanksgiving, a group of friends coming home. And I was like, perfect. And I was like, I think I can do that. And I love coming of age as a genre. And I just started kind of pulling all of my inspiration, like The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and then some other visual stuff. And I just wanted to I had so little money to make like a real movie. So I just wanted to make it just like a parade of cozy interiors, because it was frigid, just brutally cold in Pittsburgh.
Oh my God.
Um, it was horrible. So I was like, let's just do it all in basements, warm basements. But that's also because that was my adolescence. So I moved from North Dakota to a different college town, small town in the middle of Pennsylvania, that's like 40 minutes away from actual Hollidaysburg. And so I was able to do what I'm interested in too, which is just write very much kind of autobiographically. So I know that I'm getting the true stuff. So anyway, so I rewrote Dan Schofer's script with my two co-writers in 30 days and did so much crazy on the fly improvising to try and make what was a really weak script into something funny and watchable, I hope. Still not sure. But that's the story of that.
That's it's a really interesting so unique happening for a short for short film for first feature, because normally a lot of filmmakers have their feature that they want to make, and they just try anything they can to get it out there, and most people can't get the money together, so they just finance it on their credit card and then hopefully go to festivals and that kind of thing. So you almost had the other way around. You said, we're gonna make the movie, here's the script, this is the thing, but you get to just figure it out, you know what I mean? And then you have to decide, you have to compete with somebody else, on whether it's a good movie or not, that's a really bonkers setup, actually, if you think about it,
Thank you for validating the bonkersness of that. It was, the amount of stress was unbelievable, because also the people who were my producers were also producing the television show. So I was like, this is a conflict of interest. You guys are going to try to make drama between me and my very close crew here that I brought on, and my husband at the time, and my brother-in-law at the time, who were in the close crew. It was like catnip for a reality show. But I think so half the job was making the movie, and half the job was making sure that these interlopers like didn't make us all look like idiots. And we just wanted to come off like because we were professionals, like at that point we had made all those short films and a feature. Anyway, it was hilarious.
I think if you could take away, because I always find that each movie has its lesson, that you take away as a filmmaker, especially as a director, as a writer too. But each movie has its lesson. If you could point to the biggest lesson you learned from that one, that okay, this is how I'm doing it now, what would that be?
I wish it was a little bit more specific. I feel that would help people more, but actually no, this will probably, if you're listening right now and you're going into your first feature or whatever, something very stressful, you can't skip like 5 nights of sleep in a row. You can't not eat. What I learned was like, I really compromised my health during this period of time, because I felt like it was the most important thing that I'd ever been tasked with doing, because I'd been dreaming about being an artist and having reach and having an opportunity, since I started making films. I just couldn't believe that I was allowed, that I'd been getting, it was a small budget for what I was trying to make look like a big Hollywood movie, but it was still 650,000. I think then they added because something, and it's so 850 or around $1 million. And it's like, so that's a tremendous amount of money for anybody, just thinking about that amount of money. But how did I get on the money? Just, you have to take care of yourself. So like heading into, let's say, this series that I'm on my way to making, that's of utmost importance. And I'm going to go into it with the whole team knowing, and hiring an assistant. Like when I made the short film, I had an assistant who would be like, it's been 5 hours, it's been 6 hours, whatever, here. And they shove like a sandwich in my mouth. Just because directing is nonstop communicating, just nonstop communicating. Everybody needs to know what you're seeing in your head. And it's thrilling and wonderful, and also can be all consuming. So there was just, I treated my body terribly, and I paid the price. I got quite sick afterwards.
Right. So don't mess yourself up over a movie.
Yeah, because your movie will suffer too. So yeah, go into it with your team knowing that you're going to operate in a specific way where everybody can still sleep. I know they try, but man, but we're all crazy. That's what's so great about it, is that we're all so passionate. In my experience, everybody just wants to be there so badly, and you can get off kilter with just your basic human needs.
I read this really fun little piece about your drama on One Cambodian, where you lost Emily Mortimer for a short time period.
The day before.
Yeah, I that was really quite a compelling. So I mean, it's a super familiar story. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
the amount of times I've heard, "Oh my God, we lost the actor. Oh my God, we can't get this location. Oh my God," and you're like you're ready to go, and a key element is suddenly, you know. Where, like, walk me through those few hours where you had to come to terms with losing the very thing that made your movie happen.
So true. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I was at an outdoor cafe. My cinematographer, who lives in LA, had flown in, so it was all very real. We're like, "Okay." I think she was gonna sleep on my couch that night, and then we were leaving for Fargo, North Dakota in the morning. And so we're sitting there, and I think the production designer, Amy, who lives in Brooklyn, came by. We're all like, just it's a sunny day, and I get a call from this producer who's still my producer, and we're still telling that story. And she was like, "So Emily's gonna call you." She did the pre-call so that Emily could call me and deliver the bad news. And it was so sweet, because she obviously felt terrible. She knew that she was pulling the rug out. And she was like, "Any actress that you want, if I have any in with her, I will call her right now and try and get her in there, blah, 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 blah." And so she actually made good on that. And Carrie Russell, uh, was able, like, Emily called her. She was like, "Okay, send me the script." Read the script. Carrie Russell, knowing how bonkers everything is, was like, "Okay, give me until 9 a.m. tomorrow. I have to think about it. I have to make sure I don't have to do the Americans. I'm going into season 6 on the Americans. I will call you at 9 a.m." And I was like, so for that night, I was just reimagining everything with Carrie Russell, being like, "Is this gonna work? How am I gonna do this? Is the vibe right? Do I need to change anything if it's her?" And she called at 9 a.m., just like she said she would, and she couldn't do it because it was too crazy. She has children and season 6 of The Americans and blah, blah, blah. So she didn't do it. And then it was just this hilarious chess game with the people who were financing it and Emily, and basically arranging for a second shoot so that we could get Emily. And then even then, when we did a really kind of pieced together interesting film magic thing at the end scene in the field, where you see the Cambodian refugee, I think I named her Ka, and Emily's character staring at each other, staring at their kids playing in a field, staring at each other, and then like a shot of the field and the kids playing, and we go up to the sky. Those shots were shot like 3 weeks apart. And one of them, Emily wasn't there. So she was like, we shot it so that, like, that Emily's behind the van, but she's actually not there at all. And we just I couldn't believe that we pulled it off and that it looks seamless. And right before we were going to go shoot the one with um, the refugee and the Emily character staring at each other, the thing that we needed the most out of anything to end the movie, we lost the actor who was playing the Cambodian refugee character.
Oh my God.
Nobody could find her. She didn't have a cell phone. I was like, okay. And I don't smoke cigarettes at all. They make me puke. But in those moments, like, I had to walk around the block. That's what I love about filmmaking too, is that you take the person you trust the most in a moment like that. When we realized we couldn't find the actor that we needed to look at Emily in the field and the mother of the children, when we realized that, we were like, oh, after all of this, getting Emily here, getting them to give us more money so that we could get Emily here, we are not, I have to completely reimagine, rewrite an ending with the footage that we had. Anyway, it was smoking cigarette around the block time. And I think I came up with something together. We came up with okay, we'll just end it, whatever. And then we were in the field shooting Emily coming out of the van. There's supposed to be a woman here who's not here. And she shows up like somebody called her daughter, who found her in the grocery store and grabbed her and put her there. It was like tears of joy,
Oh
everybody
my
hugging. And
God.
then we
Wow.
saw at the end of the movie, and then we all jumped on planes and went home. I mean, the whole thing was just, that's the magic, though, is that you
This is
never
magic.
know.
This is movie magic. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you can't really describe it better than that. I think it's when all the things that could go wrong did go wrong and then they went right, you know.
Just in the nick of time.
Yeah,
And
that's amazing.
that's what I love about you. Plan and plan and plan and make something so, so perfect and so great. And the world or the universe or whatever will always come in and make your film something a little bit different. And it's rolling with that I find so interesting and fun. It's like uh tightrope walking.
Yeah.
like no net.
That's good. And
So
everybody
much
else
fun.
is on the rope with you.
Mhm.
You know.
Exactly. Exactly. So if one person messes up,
Uh,
the whole thing is
yeah.
jiggling. How far can I go with this
Yeah, it's
metaphor?
completely true. I know the feeling all too well. I certainly have my fair share of of nightmare stories on my very first feature. And of course, when you have no money, you have no backups. You know, you can't reshoot or anything like that. It's just like that's not it doesn't exist. So you know, well planned chaos is pretty much the name of the game in this one, and whoever manages the chaos best gets to win. You know. Uh,
Yeah, and honestly, I think early on I took a bunch of improv, like acting classes, improvisational acting, where you're just in a room with a bunch of silly people doing silly things. And I really think that was excellent training because it's the people who end up with a watchable film are the people who don't shut down when all of their amazing planning goes wrong because it will. And you kind of like, if you can expand and play whenever everything's wrong and be like, all right, this is part of the game, then you end up with something. I can imagine it would be very easy to close down and just think, well, can I swear? No.
yes, you can. Absolutely,
Okay.
you
Just
can.
think like I got fucked on this one. I got so fucked. And like you're still on set making the movie, but something went so wrong, that you're just like, wow. But if you can go the opposite direction, then the world is your oyster.
You've moved around America quite a bit as well. So because are you still in the Northeast or have you migrated south yet?
I'm in Brooklyn, New York.
Is New York does it does it have like its own sort of storytelling magic thing going on that you can tap into, or is it just what people like to think it is? And
Oh, I think it's magic. I think it's total magic. I might have a um skewed sense of it or like a deeper kind of wonder about it because I happen to have this grandfather who devoted his whole life to just photographing everything. He was like, I'm not an artist. I'm just a photographer. I want to document everything. But like other people thought he was an artist. He's quite well known in the Czech Republic. But he moved here when he was 50. So they escaped. He was already 50. My mom was 16. And so as a 50-year-old man, who had always kind of like fetishized New York, that maybe is too sexy of a word, but like he loved New York. He loved Manhattan specifically. They managed to escape and make it here. And all he did was wander the streets and photograph every single little nook and cranny of Manhattan. So I grew up with his photo books and his prints everywhere. My mom was like very much his right hand woman because she was into photography as well. And so I just saw New York through his eyes, and I was trapped in these small American college towns in North Dakota and Pennsylvania. Just longed to be. We would come visit, and I would look at all. I remember looking at the children and the adults walking on the streets, being like, "Those people get to live here. Those people are actual New Yorkers. Like, what would that be?" Anyway, so I was just pining for it, and I moved here when I was 20. And I do think it has its own magic. It's weird that you asked me about it because specifically, I'm writing a series right now that is like completely New York. I happen to place it in Brooklyn Heights, a very specific neighborhood of Brooklyn that's just right across the river from Manhattan. And my pitch for it is sort of like the magic and the way that we all culturally were like seduced by the New York of, say, Woody Allen, or even more recently, I loved Louis C.K.'s show. Um, it's just that New Yorky thing. Like sometimes you're like, let's just watch that kind of movie. And so, but funnily enough, those two men have become sort of a weird thorn in my side, at least, like just because of their behavior. And then when you see that behavior, like I can separate the artist and the work, but sometimes when you're like, oh, Manhattan, this is not right. Like this is something I overlooked when I was 12, and I actually thought it was, I guess I was like, okay, a 45-year-old man can date a 17-year-old. And it's like not so much anymore. Point being, my pitch for this series is that I want to capture that magic of New York and that feeling, the good parts of those two visions, but make it about, it's a story about misogyny, not seeping with misogyny.
Right.
So that's a little off topic, but the point is, yes, New York, I think, has a very distinct magic, and it's why I live here, even though it's so dirty and we all live in tiny boxes and it's extremely inconvenient.
It's funny how these places can do that. I mean, London isn't necessarily the cleanest place either, but for some reason, I have a partner who lives in a different part of London, slightly further north, and I love visiting like her flat simply because there's so much life really next to her. There's all these great little restaurants, all these great butchers, and the neighborhood is so much more a bit more bonkers than mine is. Mine is a bit more quiet, and I just love the activity. I love the human motion of it all, and I think those kinds of cities, these kind of mega metropolises, metropolis, what's the plural of metropolis?
No idea. Metropoli.
Metropoli. Okay, let's go with that. They just have this kind of energy to them is very, very unique, and either it grabs you or it repels you, and I've certainly been grabbed by the London one, and sounds like you got grabbed by New York.
Yeah, for many years now, but I want to be grabbed by London. I think that might be my next foray. Like if I were to live somewhere, I could see getting into London. I hardly know what
have you been to London?
Yeah, a couple times for film festivals and stuff,
right.
But not an extended. This summer I'm going to come.
Well, consider this my invitation for you to come to London. I will make sure. There's also quite a few other CenterFrame members here, so I'll make sure if you're here, we'll get together and I'll show you a bit. That's going to be great fun. We'll have some great food, and yeah, it would be great. It'd be great to meet in person. I'll make sure I'll make my way stateside as well, so we can hang out there one time. That'd be amazing.
Please.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the interview. I really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you, and it's always fun to talk to Americans, simply because I have such a history from there that I still carry with me. I mean, obviously, I still have the accent and everything, but it's just
your accent is all things.
Yeah, it's sometimes it becomes Germanic, sometimes I have the British word that gets thrown in there. Like I used to say y'all,
because it's Texas.
How y'all doing? Like it was Texas. I was in Texas for 7 years. It was gonna But anyways, thank you so much.
I guess like a world citizen vibe, which is the best kind of vibe.
It's definitely a very sort of amazing position to be in, to have lived in so many places, and as I have a strong fondness in my heart for the U.S. and I always hope to find a reason to go back. So I'm gonna make sure that the reason I go back next time is so we can hang out. That'd be amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me. I appreciate it so much, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you sign up to our newsletter and you join our social media to join the conversation. We have lots more shows like this. Make sure you check out the older catalog. Our previous episode was with Portuguese filmmaker Gonçalo Almeida, and also check out Rana Kazka's and Susana Mihani's interview from the UK Film Festival. It's been a great show so far, and we've got a few more coming. So thank you very much again. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you check out the next episode. Have a good one.